Beautiful. Awesome. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Kara Folkerts with Aspire Adventure Running. I'm really excited. All month long, we've been hosting conversations with badass women, and today is our last conversation in this series. And I'm really excited to welcome Liselle Pires on. She is the co-founder with her friend Kana, and they co-founded Trail Mix Collective. And it's basically their work there is to get more women of color in the outdoors through mentorship programs, community engagement courses, and just sharing stories and empowering and inspiring other women to get outside. And this feels very timely as we've been having these conversations and trying to get more women speaking up of their experiences in the backcountry. And we know that that is not just one type of woman, that is a widespread. And we are so excited to hear the different experiences and takes from all women. And the work she does with her partner, Kana, is incredible. So we're excited to have you today. So welcome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, so in these conversations, we've been releasing with our scholarship. We actually just released our winners from our scholarship. So we're gonna have 3 ladies come on our trips with us this weekend, this summer. And in their essay, they had to answer the question how getting in wild spaces has been empowering for them as a woman. So I'd love to hear your take on that and how your own experiences made you come together with your partner, Kana, to create Trail Mix Collective.
Yeah, I think getting outdoors has always been the number one way that I've gained confidence. It's never been through really career or school or anything like that. It's really been through kind of pushing goals in the outdoors and seeing if I can do them. And I really felt that for the first time when I ran my first ultra. It was like this huge moment of, wow, I can kind of like do this crazy thing in the outdoors if I put in the work. And it's definitely a huge way that I've boosted confidence over the years of picking up new sports too. And I know I can speak on Kana's behalf. The same has happened for her most recently, probably with rock climbing. And for the two of us, we really, when we met, really bonded over this experience. We were backpacking with a couple of our other female friends who are not women of color. And we kind of immediately started talking about how we were, excited to be out there together and how we both love doing a lot of these outdoor things, but we're typically with men and oftentimes white men. And when we were with girlfriends, it was typically white girlfriends, all of whom we love and all of whom we've learned a ton from, but we missed the kind of that opportunity to often share a little bit of the experience of the story that really comes from a lot of those common experiences that happen from being a woman of color in the outdoors, whether it's kind of family history or negative or positive experiences that have happened in the learning process, and really realize there was an opportunity to build something geared towards getting those women like us into the outdoors and creating kind of comfort zones for all women of color, but also scholarships, access, and mentorship and ways to really encourage people to feel more comfortable and more enabled from an access perspective.
Yeah, oh, that's incredible. And it sounds like too, like you have a mentorship program now. How has that been going?
That's great. I think the mentorship was actually one of the first things we wanted to do. And kind of the core thesis we had was that really getting into something new, like you can go spend 6 hours on Google kind of trying to figure something out. And we had both had so many times where we'd done things like that, gone into these Google YouTube holes, and it was something really simple that someone could have just explained to us in 10 minutes. Or for both of us, the first time we did a lot of outdoor things, having someone else there who was able to kind of tell us how to put on crampons or tell us how to like glissade properly and things like that made such a big difference in the ease of learning and the comfort of learning, and realize that mentorship is just this huge piece of comfort and education in the outdoors. So we launched that first. It's been great. Honestly, a benefit of COVID is people all over the country can join and do a lot of virtual mentorship. So we're encouraging that as well as in person and really letting it take free form there. We've had a lot of people sign up and definitely encourage people to still sign up, whether you want to teach intro something or advanced something or pick up intro or advanced skills in any sport.
That's incredible. Yeah, even in our previous conversations this past month with women, it was so evident the importance of having a mentor, and not only a mentor, but having a female mentor, someone who has been through similar experiences with you in your outdoor pursuits has been so powerful for your growth, whether it be physically in the sport, but also just mentally and emotionally and all sides of it. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, and there's so many things like I think, I just started getting into road cycling and I went outside like 10 times last year and I wore underwear under my cycling shorts, which you just don't do. And because all my cycling friends were guys, like no one thought to mention that to me. And so
Mhm.
there's these little things that you don't think of that you really get as like guidance or conversations that come up when you do things with other women. And it makes the experience like much faster to onboard into and just some, a different level of enjoyment too.
100%. Yeah, and one of our big questions when we had the women applying for our scholarship was what fears, barriers, or challenges they faced as a woman. And I'd love to ask personally, through your own experiences, what different challenges that you've faced as you've been getting into different outdoor pursuits. And it sounds like you've done kind of a broad range, and what that has looked like for you.
Yeah, I will say with the caveat, I feel super privileged that with a lot of the sports I've wanted to try over the years that I've been new to, I have had, someone in my community that I've known that I can kind of like, poke them and be like, what's this? What's this? And that's been all different types of people. And that's been tremendously helpful in learning. And I know that's something that not everyone has access to. When you live in Seattle, you kind of just end up knowing people who do different sports.
Yeah.
That aside, I think for me, like fear is definitely an inherent thing when it comes to trying new things, both from a like embarrassment perspective and just a getting hurt. A lot of these like more technical activities, you really do need to have a lot of knowledge to do the sport. And I have a lot of fear of getting hurt doing them. And I think there's a lot of shame around like going out and sometimes putting yourself out there and doing things and messing up if you're trying to push yourself in places where, you're trying to do a longer run for the first time, and you're worried about someone seeing you doing something incorrectly. And then lastly, I think, cost and kind of no matter what someone's financial situation is, really the cost barriers to new things are always a challenge, especially when you're new to it, because you kind of have to decide, for how long am I going to use the scrappy version of something? When do I feel like I'm good enough to buy the really nice running vest or whatever it is? And I think those are questions that come up when you pick up any new sport of like, when do you kind of deserve to get the nice gear and feeling like you can and figuring out how to find that gear too.
Yeah, yeah. That is it's so interesting what you said too, just I mean all of it, but especially I find the scrutiny we're under as women getting in the outdoors, because it is um so empowering to get out there, but it's like you have this spotlight on you because you're already being a woman outside, that you're already kind of questioned if you're capable of it. So it's almost like we put this pressure or we feel this pressure that we can't mess up, because if we do, they're already looking at us like expecting it to happen. So it's almost like, okay, I need to show that I'm capable to do this, because if I mess up, it's only going to continue that belief that I shouldn't be out here and it's not possible. And it is hard to try balance that when you do want to be pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and doing those things that are really challenging and hard. So it's just an interesting dichotomy to kind of work through when you're trying to get out.
And I think another thing I forgot about this one is like, oftentimes, I love doing stuff solo sometimes too. And, men tend to have a little bit of a privilege with being able to do things solo with fewer risks to keep in mind. Like if a woman wants to go out and run 40 miles starting in the dark, like there's a lot more things that she wants to think about safety wise. And sometimes those can be kind of mental and physical barriers too.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. And then of course also like you said, the cost. Because I think it's so easy for us to think, oh, like it doesn't cost anything to run. Like something like running that's easy. You don't need all the gear you would as if you were backcountry skiing or something like that. All you need is a pair of runners. But even with that, it also comes with time and having a vehicle to get out to the trails and having the time off of work. And so there are a lot of those barriers where it seems so simple that no, it doesn't cost money, but it is. There's a lot of things to consider in that as well. And I think it's important to have those conversations so there is awareness around it.
Totally. Yeah. Running is not the cheap sport everyone thinks it
No,
is. Funny
no, exactly.
about like time too, because I had a conversation with a woman in LA a couple months ago about their local running group. And she brought up this interesting thing that was like, the running group was always meeting at 5 o'clock. And for many of the women in the group who had kids, like they sort of struggled with getting there on time, and the group ended up being a lot of guys just because of the time it was at.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. So for your mentorship program, is it geared to a wide variety, or like a younger set of like maybe teenage girls or younger women, or is it kind of just all over the place where you just want more women in general?
There's definitely no age barrier. That's something I don't believe in at all. In any sport, we do have like 6 or 7 sports in a drop down menu right now, just so that we don't have like too many obscure things, and we can really build saturation so people can find matches for now. And we'll hopefully keep expanding that list. But anyone in the country. And I think the great thing is, like, for mentorship, it's something that really applies to every skill level, whether you've never been on a snowboard before or you're trying to go down your first double black diamond. Offering your mentorship skills or receiving them is something that really fits into a huge range of skill sets. So that's something that we're excited to see kind of flourish along the whole spectrum of getting into different sports.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So most of our trips, or all of our trips, are trail running based, but I'd love to hear, again, because it sounds like you do a wide variety of sports. What kind of significant outdoor pursuits do you take on in your own life and have found meaning in?
Yeah, I think, I started running on roads in college as a result of not playing team sports anymore. Like I think a lot of people do. You stop playing soccer and you're like, what do I do now? And so I was running on roads. I hated it. I thought it was super boring, but I just kept doing it. I didn't even know it was a thing for people to run on trails. Didn't grow up in a hiking family, so didn't know that was a thing. Um, Started running longer distances, was running a couple marathons. And, after you run a few road marathons, you're like, I'm kind of over the whole like running through a city for hours. And I actually, when I was in college, studied abroad in South Africa, and a friend who I made there took me on a trail run. And it was incredibly difficult, and I thought it was amazing. And I had already loved hiking and found hiking while I was there, and realized it was just kind of this like more exhilarate, not more, but a different exhilaration and a way to kind of experience trails and cover more ground. And loved the kind of less pressure I found with it. You could walk, you could jog, you could cover a lot of distance, see a lot of really beautiful outdoors, and got really interested in that. And so one of the bigger challenges I took on was running my first ultra a couple of years ago. And that was an incredible experience. Loved doing kind of long distance through hiking, and then potentially running my first half Ironman this year. We'll see.
Amazing.
But I tend to be like a do as many things average as possible and not excel at anything kind of person. So trying to do a half Ironman when I can barely swim and I'm learning how to ride a bike is kind of my typical
Yeah.
approach.
No, but I think it's so fun to just diversify and just have different things to be excited about at different points. And just kind of that idea of being a lifelong athlete in so many different things, I think is really important too. So
Totally.
that's
I'm sure
awesome.
you've been in that place where like you get an injury running, and if you don't have something else that's exciting, like it's not going to be a fun time.
Exactly. Yeah. It's nice to be able to jump on your bike or go swimming or something, for sure. Awesome. Um, and your partner, Kana, too, then, how did she, like, when did you guys kind of come together to decide that Trail Mix Collective was something that needed to happen? Where did you guys connect?
Yeah, it was actually last summer when we were backpacking. We were doing the Lewitt Trail around Mount St. Helens with a couple friends. It was like a perfect weekend, great weather. And we were just talking about like gear, really. I had, until last summer, been backpacking with my brother's Jansport backpack from the 90s. And kind of laughing about it. It's like this ridiculously heavy pack. It's horrible. But it worked. And so I never upgraded it. And we were talking about just like the cost of gear and access. And that kind of got us started talking about like access in general. And we started connecting over like personal experiences we've both had with wanting to get into new sports. We both had really been interested in mountaineering for a long time and not really pursued it because of cost. And that kind of just opened the conversation about how we had both found recently in new sports we were pursuing, we'd really been the only women of color in the space too, and how that connection probably existed with access both from a comfort level as well as a cost barrier, and really sparked the idea of how can we start doing something. And mentorship was what came out of that conversation, and ultimately led to, well, why don't we do events too and just make an entire platform here to really get women connected and involved in as much of a capacity as we can.
Amazing. So I know you were saying COVID has been good in terms of having the mentorship from all over in the States, but how in other ways has COVID altered maybe what you thought your 2020 season would look, or even in this summer? Because have you been able to host in-person events or anything, or how has it shifted it?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely haven't had as many events as we'd like to. And when we are doing events, obviously need to really be aware of brand safety and participant safety, instructors, and keeping numbers smaller. So it doesn't allow us to get as many people involved as possible. But at the same time, when you have a small group of people, you really foster kind of deeper relationships faster. So I think it's a positive in some ways still too. But we are trying to be really sensitive to what kind of events we do. Like we're not, planning any backpacking yet, but we're going to later in the fall, and try and just think about those kind of things. Fortunately, they're all outdoor sports, so there's the safety benefit there. We just last week had like an intro ski day and an intro steep skiing and snowboarding day at Crystal with Arc'teryx, which was awesome. We've got a lot of trail running and hiking coming up this summer. And kind of our like big flagship event that sparked everything is this July. We have a 4-day mountaineering course on Mount Baker. So that's gonna be super fun. And it's exciting because that's one of the sports that we first connected on, talking about how it was like this crazy expensive and really intimidating, scary sport to get into. So really excited about that one in particular.
Oh, that's incredible. And have you found too then that other brands and people that you've collaborated with have been really receptive to kind of your message and what you're trying to get out? How has that been?
Yeah, I mean, like you guys and with so many brands, it's been awesome to see the support. I found from bigger brands, there's just this kind of appreciation. And obviously, we benefited a lot from conversations that came up in 2020, much later than they should have, but they've kind of opened a lot of brands to thinking about how, there's A, the level of just having an interest on their part, and then B, realizing like oftentimes it's easier to put your money and your time into organizations that are fully focused on an effort versus trying to figure it out yourself, especially if they don't have diverse teams to kind of put those thoughts into action. So we really found that brands are excited about what we're doing and really eager to support us. And that's been super exciting to see, and really promising for what we can keep doing.
Yeah, no, that's amazing to hear. And like you said, I feel like these conversations are happening later than they should, but it is still just so good to see that there is the interest from people being like, oh, this is stuff we need to be learning about. We need to know, we need to encourage and empower you guys. So, and like I said, with this series, it's been about hearing the highs and lows of women, but it's all women. So it's really exciting to be collaborating with you guys. And I guess with that said too, I'm really excited for this September because we're going to be with Aspire hosting our first affinity trip with you guys. And we're going to be having a trip out in Susha Island in September, and just kind of working together and having you guys host it and having more women come on the trails with us. So it's really exciting, and we'll have more information of that on our website, and I'm sure on your website too as it comes. But again, like you said, it's awesome to see then, even in this kind of COVID world right now, that we are able to be having these events that are smaller in the outdoors, because I think that's something that for so many people, getting out in outdoor spaces and recreating outside has been such a sense of meaning for a lot of people. So having that taken away can be really, really hard, amongst so many other difficulties in the last year. So just really excited to be collaborating on that. And I'm sure too, through your community and mentorship, that's really come up where women have struggled with not being able to get out as much as they've wanted to. So to know that things are coming is probably really exciting for them and for everyone.
Yeah, and we're stoked for that trip. I mean, Susha Island is like a total gem in the Northwest and just an amazing place. And I think people getting to spend multiple days outside together too, like you really get to kind of day one break down the kind of, being a little bit reserved barrier and open up. And trail running is just still a super, super not diverse sport. And so I'm excited to work with you guys and get more women of color realizing that it's a sport and realizing they can do it. And a lot of, road runners who might find a ton of joy in doing it too, experiencing it with other women.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is so interesting. We were hosting Sabrina from Black Trail Runners 2 weeks ago. And we had a conversation too, how it's very interesting between road racing and trail running, how there is a lot more diversity in the road racing scene versus trail running. And it is, like you said, just so great to have these opportunities to have maybe people who are road runners see that there is a lot of great trail access. And not to say one is better or worse, but they're just different. And it would be cool to just see more people getting out on the trails too, because there's definitely that special connection with nature that you find out on the trails that I don't think you can get as much just running through a city.
Right. And I think when people, I think like they're definitely, I see that with like road cycling and mountain biking too, the diversity jump. Like if you go for a run in Seattle, you'll see all kinds of diversity running, but not if you get on a trail. And I think realizing there are like easy trails close by, you don't have to drive 3 hours out to the North Cascades to do it, although you'll enjoy it if you do. And that like, the gear isn't that much different or crazy, and that there's a lot of access there. And I think really like creating communities that go out there and education around trail running is really helpful. Like the safety piece is definitely one that I think is probably a huge barrier. But I think there's a lot of ways to get more women out there.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd love to hear too, because it sounds like you, through your own personal endeavors, getting outside and through Trail Mix Co. and just life in general, I'd love to hear how you balance all of the things together in your own life.
I mean, I don't. I also work full time. And so, I mean, it's a lot all the time, but I think like, and I'm sure you have the same experience as does anyone who runs or does anything active. That's like almost requirement level one for doing any of the other things well, or being your best self with a partner or friends or anyone. So I think like being active is always my first priority, to like be my best self, and then kind of just fit everything else in. Unfortunately, sleep is the thing that gets sacrificed at the end of the day. And I know that's horrible, so I don't advocate that.
Yeah.
I think it's also just being more gentle with myself. I think when I was younger, it was like, if it wasn't a 10-mile run, it wasn't a run. And now I'm like, I got a 3-mile run in, and that was fine. And so I think kind of like being able to go with the ebb and flow of when you have more work or more family, and being able to adjust the other things and just like give yourself the grace of enjoying whatever you get each day is kind of a big attitude piece that lets you get everything in collectively.
Yeah, I think the grace piece is such a big thing, especially as athletes, because it's so easy to want to get everything done. I think the health of those two together and still be a really strong athlete, still be like kicking ass in so many regards, but also having that grace for yourself along the way and having them coincide.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I think one of the hardest things today for me and for a lot of people is probably social media. Just like create these really unrealistic expectations of like what a workout is or what a day outside is. And like it's hard if you on a Saturday like had to take care of your kids. Like I don't have kids, but people do that. Or if you didn't work out, it was a rest day, you took a short day, whatever it is, and you see someone did a 30-mile run, it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to like give yourself that grace. And it's both a source of inspiration as well as stress, I think, and being able to sort of separate those two things is definitely an art.
Oh, totally. It's very challenging, and I feel like just this continual need to check in with ourselves and where we're at, and kind of coming back to that. Because if you don't, it is really easy. I mean, yeah, I've definitely fallen into that too, where it's like, okay, I need to have this rest day. Like I've done my body good this week, and I need to rest. Like that's a huge part of recovery and getting stronger. And then yeah, you see someone post some epic adventure and you're like, oh man, like I feel guilty. I didn't get out today. I was sitting on the couch or something like that. So yeah, definitely just something to always keep in mind. And again, that's where having like mentorship programs, these conversations, just talking about it, I think it does a lot. Like it creates a big ripple effect that reaches people and realize that they're not alone in those feelings, and that they can get support and encouragement on kind of all sides of the spectrum when they're getting outside and everything. So awesome. And one thing we were asking in our other interviews as well, and I'd love to hear how this is extended in your own life, is what's one of your proudest outdoor accomplishments, whether it be running, mountaineering, even starting Trail Mix Co. Just like one of your, something that you're super jazzed on and just feels like a big accomplishment for you.
Yeah, it's actually, so last summer I did the Wonderland Trail. It's a backpacking trip, and it was my first time backpacking alone, and did it over like 6 days with my, oh, sorry, I had never backpacked alone, and I ended up inviting a girlfriend, and we did it over the course of 6 days. And I had actually never backpacked without a partner, a male partner. And I honestly, like, as someone who does a lot of things independently as a female, I had never done backpacking that way. And that was a really amazing experience because it was kind of like having to run through all of the checklist items and not have anyone else really to be like, here's what you're doing wrong, here's what you're doing right. And to figure out that long of a trip on our own was really awesome. And what was cool was we were the only like women in our age group who weren't with guys we saw on the entire trip. And we had an amazing time. And, you know, it wasn't this like insane athletic feat, but it was just a really fun trip. And something that, like, with the logistics and all the different things that happen in a day of like how many bears you see and the waking up, the getting to camp, the dealing with weather, was really an incredible experience and kind of an affirmation of like the separate joy you get when you figure out things on your own for the first time or when you're spending time with a woman in the outdoors. And really loved that. And I do want to go back and run the Wonderland, but
Yeah, come with us.
I want to, yeah, but really loved kind of the slowness of enjoying the whole thing too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's such a special place for sure. I'm glad that you experienced that. And I definitely want to preface and say that no accomplishment, whether it's running, hiking, or anything, is too small. Like doing a 5K, I think, is amazing. So regardless of what it is, but the Wonderland it's a gnarly trail. It's big, but I love what you said too. I think just proving to yourself that, like, I think it just affirms how resilient we are, and it's so easy. I think unconsciously as women, it's so often that we're in the backcountry on a mountaineering trip, running, whatever it is. It's easy for us to unconsciously just start leaning on our male counterpart, knowingly or unknowingly, whether it is for filtering water or asking this advice or asking for navigation or anything like that, when I think inherently we know and are capable of a lot more than we let on, but it's just so easy to lean on that male figure, because that's kind of what society.
And it goes for like any partner, whether it's
Yeah.
female or male, but like I think if you knowing that you should kind of learn all the things is important. Like if you always let your partner, you know, start the jet boil, then you probably don't know how to use a jet boil. Speaking for myself. So yeah, I think it's important to like feel confident doing all those things. And on your other point, it's true. Like when I think about times I've been most proud of myself in the outdoors, it's never been for like big races or big like accomplishments. It's always been when I've been really scared of doing something and done it. So it's like when I got back on my bike after being hit, or when I like hiked my first, you know, volcano and was just terrified the whole time. It's like things like that that I think you walk away feeling the most accomplished when you've kind of said like, yes, I'm scared, but I'm going to try doing this thing anyways. And like figure out all the resources I can put together to at least set myself up for success. It's just like that huge confidence boost that lets you then do the harder things later.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said too, like trip planning is a huge part of a lot of outdoor excursions. So even just doing that and proving to yourself that, oh, I can figure this out. And it's not really easy to figure out the permits and this and map and everything. But if I work at it, and I actually can do it and figure it out. So that's awesome that you were able to experience that too, and just the discomforts with all sides of it. And I guess I have one quick question too, if that's something in your mentorship program that you guys focus on, kind of all different sides of outdoor pursuits.
Yeah, I mean, every week we've been trying to do like a tip series that's covering anything from like how to dress properly in terms of layers. And so realizing that it's like not all about the strength and the training and all of that, but there's really all these different pieces of planning and successful in the outdoors, and really trying to incorporate that into the content we put out into the world, and definitely encouraging mentors to also, because you know, it's like your athleticism gets you so far, but you have to have like figured out how to actually do the sport and the logistics of it and having the right gear and planning too.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I guess forecasting for the rest of 2021, I'd love to hear kind of what is on your calendar in terms of maybe your own personal endeavors or with Trail Mix Co. or what you kind of are hoping this year is going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, with Trail Mixed, like I said, we've got a lot of hikes and trail running kind of intro series, as well as advanced days coming up over the next few months in a few different places in California and Colorado and Washington. We'll be announcing those soon. Obviously, an awesome trip with you guys out in Susha Island, which we'll be announcing soon as well, and the mountaineering course in July, which is super cool because we actually are able to financially sponsor a majority of participants. And then as we get into the fall and the winter, really want to transition into a huge focus on winter sports because, at least from my perspective, like they're some of the most complicated and gear intensive activities. And so really starting the planning now for figuring out how we can get more women access to, really expensive lift tickets and get them gear and really get them kind of buddy systems out there to like get that first full day in of snowboarding together with someone versus the like 6-on-1 lesson where you leave and you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big focus when the winter rolls around. And, of course, really just hoping that things clear up by like late summer and we can start doing some larger format events. In the meantime, definitely trying to incorporate some virtual ones too, so we can really reach out to people like in Florida and North Carolina and all these places that I think are even less paid attention to than the Northwest. Like we have so many outdoor brands here, so we tend to talk about these things more, and we'll hear from women in less like traditionally outdoorsy places that this is even more of a problem. So really trying to expand our reach to those places too.
Yeah, that's huge. That's amazing work. That's awesome to just hear all these different projects that you guys have going on. And I wish you so much success in that. And we're excited to just be collaborating and working with you as well to continue helping the work that you're doing and spreading that to different communities because it is very important. So I guess my last question will just kind of be to summarize why you started Trail Mix Co. and why do you think it's important for women to be tackling different wilderness objectives and getting out in these wild spaces and what meaning it has in their life?
Yeah, I mean, look, it has a huge physical meaning. It's like our longevity, our ability to be healthy and be involved with our families or communities for a long time. So the physical benefits are massive. And then, I mean, from a mental perspective, I think tackling new things and big things is something that's always available to you with outdoor sports. There's never a lack of new things you can try. And so it's just a way to always challenge yourself and build confidence. And that confidence pervades everything else in your life. So the confidence, the physical piece, and the community. I mean, I think everyone in the outdoors can say that they've made amazing friends out there. And those community relationships and friendships are just this incredible way to have a support system, explore new places, and continue to kind of build friends all over.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, I want to thank you so much for having this conversation. This is the last of our conversations with badass females, and you are definitely badass, and just all the work that you've done. Really excited to be highlighting it in this webinar series and closing in on that. And yeah, so we just announced the winners for our scholarship this past week, and we'll be releasing those essays too with the question of how moving through wild spaces has empowered them in the outdoors. So just really excited to continue sharing these stories of all amazing women. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, thank you, Liselle. Really excited to be running in Susha with you this September. And I hope everyone, yeah, awesome. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day. So take care, guys.
Awesome. All right.
Bye.